This podcast was recorded on October 8th, 2017. By the time you hear it, things may have changed. Welcome to Black Women Talk Politics. I'm Sheila Strain Clark.
And I'm Sabria Williams.
And we are back. And, just a week ago today, when we were taping the last podcast, I would have never imagined that that same night would have been the deadliest night in American history from the perspective of a mass shooting.
In modern history.
In modern history. So we were as shocked and horrified as...
When you woke up on Monday morning, right?
Yep, as all of you guys were and are. And so we want to give our condolences to the families of the 59 victims that were lost at that horrific event, and as well as wish speedy recovery and peace, really. As much peace as can be conjured in this moment for the over 500 people who were injured. We're going to talk a lot on this show about Nevada because it was such a tremendous week of mourning and just really anger about the way folks can readily get guns here in our country. But there were some other things going on throughout the week. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about
just
that
touch
too.
on those a little bit.
So, Sabria, I know you've been tracking for us.
I was outside of Charlottesville visiting my Williams family. Woohoo, shout out to my family. But it is outside of Charlottesville. And this weekend, Charlottesville was celebrating their bicentennial, the university's bicentennial. And UVA alum Richard Spencer, for those of you who don't know, the white nationalist who has been leading all of the protests in Charlottesville from the May, August, and this one, he was there, and his quotes are, "We're gonna keep coming." So he was leading white nationalists and white supremacists and a torch lighting in. Again, for the for protection of the Robert E. Lee statue that is in Charlottesville. And Charlottesville Mayor Mike Siner sent a tweet, "Another despicable visit by neo-Nazi cowards. You're not welcome here. Go home. Meantime, we're looking at all of our legal options. Stay tuned." So it's good to know that even though Spencer has his hate agenda, the mayor of Charlottesville is not a part of it. And he is vocal and he is loud and he wants people to know that Charlottesville, you're protected. And it's interesting because Spencer, he's involved in all these hate groups. And one of his quotes, his tweets was, "We wanted to prove that we came in peace in May. We came in peace in August," which I beg to differ for Heather Heyer and her family that she believes it was peace. I beg to differ by anybody else who was hit by that vehicle if it was in peace, or the people that were beaten that if it was in peace, the people that were in the synagogue nervous not being able to leave because you had your tiki torch hate group outside of that synagogue. But okay. And so now, again, he's saying they've come in peace, which we know is a load of bullcrap. But, and so they're protesting the removal of the statue. And Spencer's message is, our identity matters. We're not going to stand by and allow people to tear down these symbols of our history and our people. And we're going to do this again. So here we are.
Yeah, see, they continue to say, "You will not replace us," and that the South will rise again. And,
Nice.
Clearly that's, there is no disguising what their agenda
it's very
is. So it's
in our face. And it's it's the reoccurring theme of this white male fear of whatever being replaced is. And it's really sad and interesting because it's like you replaced the whole people. You came here and replaced the Native Americans. And so now when, things are coming to pass, your roosters are coming home, you're now, talking about, nobody has even said that they want to replace you. Right. You were very vigilant and very deliberate about coming here and replacing a people. So, it's sad, and it's scary that we are here in 2017 having to revisit things of our past or the hate of our past because out of fear.
Well, I mean, one good thing is that the rally lasted 10 minutes and there were like three people there. So, if anything came good out of it, it was
Absolutely.
that there was less interest than before. And I'm
Absolutely.
sure Charlottesville was much more, I don't know how protective or, um,
No, Charlottesville, they protect their own, and I believe that. And having not gone there, but my sister is a UVA alum, and going to Charlottesville a lot, it seems like a hug when you're there. It seems very close knit, and I'm sure after August, it's even more so. So, shout out to Charlottesville and the mayor again for letting these hate folks know that they're not going to win. What else is there? I just get frustrated. I mean, because I don't want to say just because it is. We're moms and we're working for our families and we're here. And the reason we started this was because, we wanted to resist this administration. But there's so many things to resist. You feel like you're resisting every day. Every morning you wake up, there's a new thing to resist. So again, North Korea, the New York Times is quoting Donald Trump, and not even quoting him, but then there are tweets that he's tweeting out. But one thing will work to rein in North Korea. So now we've segued into something else that's scary besides white supremacists, which is possible impending war, maybe with North Korea. If you're listening to the president hint quite heavily at that being a possibility. The president dogging past administrations and saying that, they've been talking to North Korea for 25 years and they've just made massive amounts of money. This is him on Twitter yesterday afternoon, saying that, it hasn't worked, agreements violated before the ink was dry, making fools of the U.S. negotiators. Sorry, but only one thing will work. Well, no, thank you for the apology. What are you talking about? We need to know. I mean, and what gives you the right to think that you can start making these insinuations because it's just the fear, right? So he's working on the fear of the poor white people that are his base. Now he's working on the fear of the people of the United States, getting us all riled up because now we're nervous, and he enjoys being able to be in control, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's a shock jock. I mean, there's no question, and an exaggerator.
And it's horrible. And of course, per their norm, the White House has declined to answer any questions about what actions, Trump was referring to, which is just insane and inept. I mean, we need to know what you're talking about. How do we prepare ourselves? What do we do? I mean, I feel like it's such, the juxtaposition between transparency of the last administration, or at least the assertion that they wanted to be transparent, and the closed door of this administration is just ridiculous. So I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. It's unclear of if we're going to war, if we're not. But I know the president likes to tease.
Yeah, he definitely does.
Like a 2-year-old.
Yeah, right.
Even on Thursday evening at a photo op at the White House with military leaders and their spouses, Trump, was gesturing around the room trying to get the reporters to come in. And, he said to the reporters, he asked the reporters, you guys know what this represents. And then he was like, maybe it's the calm before the storm. What in the entire... I mean... So, and then when he was asked on Friday, like what his storm comments meant the previous day by the press, Trump winked and said, you'll find out. This is a game. And
I think so.
And I'm not playing it. I don't want to be your toy. I'm done. And how do we as Americans stand up and say, this is not how we play. This is serious. This is our lives. Literally. I mean, you're talking about people with nuclear weapons. Mm-hmm. It's not like, hey, let's go outside and, boom, boom. This is real. People will die. Massive amounts of people will die.
Yeah. I mean, I think that half the time when Trump says stuff, I don't even take him seriously anymore. And I know there's a danger in that, right? Because it's really convenient for me to take that stance, Mm-hmm. Because I feel like I see right through him, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people that feel that way too.
Right.
But of course, when you're dealing with another person that's an egomaniac,
Right.
a dictator. There is something to be said for verbal restraint and maturity and communication. I think realistically, we kind of already discussed this before. Whereas everybody says going to war with North Korea would be a tremendous waste of time, financial assets, and lives, right? Because at the end of the day,
It would be
we
catastrophic.
would decimate North Korea, and at the
Or
same
maybe
time,
not.
we would get, maybe or maybe not, but it seems like probably. But the reality is, there will be collateral damage.
On both sides.
Plenty of it. And I think most people would say, North Korea sure isn't worth it. Like, for real, North
Yeah.
Korea, So, I mean, I definitely understand the need to get, and I mean, in all seriousness, though, I understand the need to get them to pull back on these nuclear weapons and on their whole. So I do think that there has to be other intelligent ways to achieve similar results. But
It seemed like
declaration of war
It's not one of
doesn't
them.
seem
And
to
it
be
seemed
it,
like
yeah.
Rex Tillerson was trying to do that. He
And
was
is, but
trying
see, I
to
think
have
he
this
has to
conversation.
play Rex Tillerson out, like just like everybody else. Like he sends the
We
adults,
all think that
he
he's a
sends
moron,
the adults
right?
to do the hard work, right? But he likes to get in the sandbox and just
Throw
kick
the
up a
sand,
storm,
yeah.
right. But but then he sends in the adults, so the adults have to.
But then when he sends him, he totally blindsides him once he's there talking and like, no, Rex, don't. I mean, we talked about that last week. Like, well, why not talk about, in having meaningful conversation with our enemies and not just our allies. We all want to be here peacefully. But then he knocks that down because he has a bone to pick with Rex Tillerson. Because he said what everybody believes is that he's a fucking moron. I mean, that's another piece that happened this week that if we go there, we won't get to anything else.
I really would be very surprised. I mean, it's just like we were talking about before this show. He does not have unilateral authority to send us to war. Obviously, he's a major influencer.
Yeah.
But I think we haven't heard anyone, I haven't read anyone besides his tweets that indicate that there's support, let alone broad bipartisan support for an act of war. So.
I hear you, Sheila, but we didn't think this time last year this fool would even be in office. So at this point, we have to prepare ourselves, not and on some level, of taking what he is saying, what he is hinting to, in my opinion, not necessarily seriously, but just listening to it and keeping it in the back of our heads because we know that this fool is capable of a lot of craziness. So,
Well, that's true.
Speaking of his craziness, on Friday, proving that the only people who have democracy and true freedom here are white men, the Trump administration is trying to expand the rights of employers to deny women insurance coverage for contraception and issued sweeping guidance or religious freedom that critics said could also erode civil rights protections for lesbians, gays, and bisexuals and transgender. So basically, they're saying that, you know what, I can use my religious right as an employer to say, nope, I'm not going to give you your birth control pills. But it's such a slippery slope, right? If I that goes against what I believe religious, as a religious person, then what's to say? Then obviously that's where they're saying it could erode the rights of gays, lesbians, and our transgendered brothers and sisters because it's not. I don't believe that either. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're fornicating? I don't believe that either. I mean, where does it stop? It's just so. It's estimated that with this, hundreds of thousands of women could lose their birth control benefit, which is insane.
Crazy. Right.
And so this is a systematic dismantling of the ACA. So this is how they're going to do it. This is how they're going to poke the hole in it. Right. They're just going to, wherever they can find, to make executive order, Trump will do it. He'll just, right. And you know who's going to suffer most? Us. When I say us, I mean women.
Right.
Because apparently they have this horrible hate and disdain for women. I mean,
for women's health, for women's reproductive
just for women in general.
Because we're talking about, you're delivering a baby being taken off of, the ACA.
Yeah.
In terms of where you can use your insurance benefits. Yes. They're talking about pre-existing conditions. We're talking about no birth control. I mean, all of these are. I really don't get it. I mean, if the goal is the goal for people not to have sex, That's not
Yes.
going to happen.
That's what
So
they-
then the goal is to have more people on
His
the earth.
evangelical base is wanting you to have sex with your husband only after marriage.
But then what? Have all the children you happen to get pregnant? You know,
Yes.
I mean, wait a minute. Listen.
Right. That's clear.
Whether
That's
you-
the messaging.
No, I mean, it's ridiculousness. You know, I mean, there's, you know,
I mean, there have been
totally,
quotes that when this passed, there was a group that was saying how they're happy that they don't have to be culpable in the death of children. No, I'm
so
controlling.
this is all, okay. So this is all tied in with also the
Yes.
anti-abortion pieces as well.
Yes,
So
because
birth control is a form of abortion.
Any type of birth control. Well, contraception.
I mean, this is just so radically wild to me. It's like I didn't even get that like one birth control
Correlating.
pill correlates to.
Oh yeah, no.
You know,
Because it's
pro-life or anything.
It absolutely does.
Okay.
With some.
I just think it correlates to me wanting to have some control
Control
over
over
how
how
many
my li-
people
yeah.
I'm responsible for,
Right.
and you know,
Or just in my life, and if I want to go to college and want to make sure that I finish college.
because these are the same people that then turn around and talk about they can't take care of themselves. You know, they shame people that need,
Absolutely. They need
government
help. Yep.
assistance. You know, so it is a bit
And
of
then
hypocrisy.
be clear, once the babies get here, they don't give two damns about them. I mean, so these conservative evangelicals, you know, claiming, oh, they want the well, then when you're taking away the Medicaid, you're taking away all the ways that we have to take care of these children. So it's hypocrisy personified, if you ask me. But just another nightmare in our week dealing with this administration.
Yeah, you know, it's just, and I think you had mentioned, well, you know, one of the other things I thought was pretty funny, just so we can get a little levity, as you always say, is with Bob Corker.
Right.
You're talking about that earlier.
Where did I say that he said that the Senator Bob Corker was saying that the White House is an adult daycare center, which I just happened, like, it just came up while I was sitting here, and I felt like that was funny. And he's on his way out. He's resigned. He said he's not going to run again, and so pretty much at this point he's just has, you know, the liberty and freeness to speak his mind. And I feel like that came after a tweet and when Trump was coming after him for something. But this is where we are. So we have folks that are going to be the Republicans that are going to be in. And I hate that he's leaving if he has so much, if he's going to be a staunch resistor of the Trump agenda. I feel like you should stay because we do need Republicans that are going to be, you know, resistors. We do need people that are going to say, you know what, no, I'm not going to stand up. But he's leaving because it's too foolish for him. He can't deal with the foolishness. And
there's other people leaving too. I think 3 or 4 others that have been in Congress for quite some time are leaving. And
instead of staying and fighting the good fight and realizing that if you align yourself with, you know, in a bipartisan way, we can then come to compromise.
Well, the question is, can Democrats get these seats back? And I mean, of course, you're talking about Tennessee. I'm sure that is a very hard state to win.
Alabama, which we already know is not the Senate. That's Senate seat is gone.
But I mean, I do think it creates opportunities for Democrats to continue to try, and also to kind of see who is running in those areas. You know, if they're going to be more liberal-leaning Republicans, they're going to be more conservative. Are they going to be these Tea Party type of people?
Well, with Bannon trying to get all his people in play, depending on where you go, it's going to be not. I mean, I don't even know that Tea Party is appropriate. These are neo-Nazis that he's trying to get into the Senate, and so that's my fear with these people leaving. If they are from largely Republican areas where historically the vote has gone for the Republican in our Senate, then we need to be very aware of what horse is pushing this, or who's pushing this cart. Because if it is Bannon, that's a very different agenda than even the, you know, Paul Ryan crazy Republican. It's a different type of evil that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one of the things we also talked about last week a lot was Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about how after Hurricane Irma, Puerto Rico was in a desperate state. We had the mayor of San Juan speaking up, you know, asking, begging, pleading for help. We had this whole insane juvenile feud by Trump, directed towards her, another woman in leadership, talking about they want everything done for them, et cetera, et cetera. So on Tuesday, Trump finally made his way down there to Puerto Rico.
And what do we see? What happened, Sheila? Why
Well,
don't you say it?
well,
What did
there
we
was
see on
there,
camera when he
I mean,
had the
apparently
opportunity?
he thought we were at a baseball game or something like that, where
All we can do is catch the ball.
I mean, where we throw basic needs. I mean, paper towels. Or we toss them like a T-shirt or a sports hat to the fans in the stands, right? And we're like, no, this was like a dispatch center for hurricane relief supplies. We're talking about water. We're talking about paper towels. We're talking about food.
We're also talking about death and destruction. And there is no room for you to be in your jovial state when you're down there with people who need care, who need compassion. It was funny, they did the of course, if social media will quickly make a meme, and so the meme of President Clinton, embracing a hurricane survivor, President Bush embracing a Katrina survivor, President Obama embracing, a hurricane survivor, and then of course Trump's meme is just tossing these rolls of paper towels at people, and it's just that, and that's it. It's that lack of empathy, that lack of common courtesy and compassion for your fellow man that is just so unthinkable that this guy is even there. And when you draw the comparisons between Donald Trump and even George W. Bush, who we thought at the time was the devil, but now would welcome with open arms, it's what do we do? I mean, how do we expect Puerto Rico to thrive? How do we expect them to come back from this if we don't have somebody who empathizes with them?
Well, I just think that, again, Puerto Rico was not really on their mind in terms of the type of response they were going to need to have. I mean, because like you said, Puerto Rico was Puerto Rico before and after the storm. So we knew if there was a possibility of catastrophe coming to Puerto Rico, it was going to need a response that was different than Florida or Texas. But what we know is that only 10% of Puerto Ricans have power still, and only about 55% have drinking water. And so what we know is that, Trump is like, when he's self-evaluating, it's going to be biased. And what he's done is say, I think we've done just as great of a job here as in Texas and Florida, which obviously everyone knows it's not true because the devastation wasn't even the same. I mean, it was a Category 4 hurricane, right, that hit Puerto Rico, right?
And they had 2 hurricanes.
Right. They had Maria and Irma back to back, So of course you have that, and you have the fact that Puerto Rico doesn't have the infrastructure, and you have the fact that Puerto Rico has mountains and
black people.
So there were known geographic issues that Puerto Rico was going to have, that everybody who studied hurricane. So there should have been some anticipation of what it was going to take. But I think what you have is the White House, just continuing to use these stale talking points about how great things are. Meanwhile, you have artists like Pitbull and Jennifer Lopez and actually private citizens that live in Miami taking their charter flights and bringing supplies back and forth to Puerto Rico. And while that's happening, instead of, this being a motivation for the federal government to even amplify their position, what they're doing is trying to spin. So they've changed FEMA's website, right? So they up until around October 3rd, you could find information on FEMA's website about how many people in Puerto Rico were without power and without access to water. But as they've done with EPA and others, they've removed all of that up-to-date information because it's going to make them look bad. And so now that, they say that additional information will be coming. So if you want to know how well U.S. is helping our U.S. territory of Puerto Rico. You can't even go on the United States run websites because we're not talking about what's really happening. We have to go to a Spanish-led website, or at least one source I will take you to. I'll give you this website, which is actually, I believe, run by some affiliates of the Puerto Rican government. Right. And so you have to basically go to Puerto Rico to hear about how Puerto Rico is doing vis-a-vis what the U.S. government is doing for Puerto Rico. It's really kind of ridiculous. It's like going all around the corner to find out what's in front of you. And so if you go to www.status.pr/home, which is a really interesting website. I went on there yesterday because, reading this article and they were talking about how you can't even go on FEMA's website
Right.
anymore, but you could go here. So I went there. You have to translate the site because it's in Spanish, but Google does that. They have a button. You could just push it. I never knew that. So I just
Google
translated the whole site from
Yeah.
from Spanish to English, and they have this really cool dashboard with about 15 indicators. So they have gasoline, they have air, air travel, they have water, they have electricity. So they have the big ones, and then they have like smaller ones. And it basically, honestly, it said, like, went on there last night. It was like 11% of the people have power, and 55% of the people have water, and it's date stamped, so you can kind of keep up with how current it is. And so again, that's a great website. Everyone should go on it, and there's a lot of ways you can donate. They have different links to different places for donation. You were going to say something?
Yeah, it just goes to when you're saying this whole changing the website so you can't find out what's happening and not, it goes to that no accountability, right? I'm not going to be accountable for anything wrong that happens. So I'm never going to apologize. It's very dangerous. If you ever meet somebody who doesn't apologize when they're wrong, run. And, it's unfortunate that we cannot run from Trump and this administration, because if you're not apologizing, if everybody else is wrong around you. I was having this conversation with my 8-year-old son today. So the fact that we're comparing Trump again to 8-year-olds is phenomenal. That you must be held accountable. Apologizing is strength. Showing that you are human and that you have flaws, and being able to come back from those flaws and be excellent. That is how we grow. This is why this president has not grown. This is why he is so horrible, because he refuses to accept when he makes a mistake and grow from it. From his lost businesses to making the sexist comments about women. None of it is an apology. None of it. We don't. So he has never grown. And so here we are on the heels of Puerto Rico, where he is only going to spin that he's done a fabulous job. And you know what? It's the FEMA's fault for showing the bad statistic instead of it actually being FEMA's fault for being part, or the U.S. government's part of being the cause of the bad statistic.
Right.
So, I just feel like this is the theme, that when you have somebody who is, a sociopath and sort of narcissistic in this way, this is going to be no matter what. I mean, and we'll see it. We're going to go into Vegas now, I guess we can, and we'll see it with this. It's never going to be an apology.
No, and the thing about the Las Vegas shooting is that apparently, these things happen and there's a lack of action. That's the trend.
Right.
That there's a lot of, oh my God, how could this have happened? It's horrible. It's terrible, but we can't create any legislation to prevent it from happening again. It's, that's called politicizing it. That's called it's too soon. That's called there's really nothing that we can do, all which translate to me as excuses and cop-outs. So we know on very, very early Monday morning, there was the worst mass shooting in modern U.S. history. It was in Las Vegas. It was during the Route 91 Harvest Festival. This was the final act of the festival. I believe there was over 22,000 people that were in attendance. And it was kind of set up, and some folks have said it's almost like it was like a fishbowl, right?
Yeah.
The way people they were in this outside concert area, and so this guy goes up, and he's on the 32nd floor in the Mandalay Bay Hotel, which is right, across the major street from where the festival is taking place. And he's in a room that's actually on the corner of the hotel. It's like a suite. So, and he busts out those windows and begins shooting into the crowd. And he uses a weapon that he uses a rifle that's been modified with something called a bump stock. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And it turns his rifle basically into an automatic weapon. And for about 10 minutes, this guy just rained down bullets on the people. And and 59 people died, and over 500 people were wounded. And it was absolute total chaos. Many of us have listened, even if it was for a minute, to some of the videos from that night. And you may as well have been in Afghanistan or Iran or all these places where we talk about these terrible war zones. I mean, just to hear the bullets pop so quick and so repeatedly for so long, and they're so loud, just tells you just a slight amount of how much terror must have existed in that night. And as most people who've been through something traumatic know, when you're in the middle of something like that, time is so slow. So that 10 minutes must have felt like 10 hours for those people. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, it's just, you talk about like nothing happens, but we must, because we have short memories for this, right? We until this one comes, it's, June, Orlando was worse before this. But when you have Sandy Hook, where children are killed and no legislation has changed, then what do we have to hold our? We cannot expect anything to happen. No, it's sad. I mean, because we know, even though they're talking about the bump stocks, the accessory, the bump stock, yeah, everybody's on board with yes, but the consistent theme in every shooting, besides a person, is the gun. So yeah, we need to have legislation on mental health, definitely, but we also, these guns, getting them out of people's hands in this way should be number one on the priority list. And the fact that it isn't, and the fact that you're so selfishly thinking that we're taking your Second Amendment right is ridiculous.
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, I think this story, as tragic as it is has a lot of opportunities for kind of questioning ourselves on thinking we know everything. Right. For instance, this guy, Steve Paddock, one of the big pieces of conversation is he was on no one's radar. He was on no one's radar because he didn't show up in some of the ways we traditionally think of a person who's desolate, disparate rather, they're desperate, they're depressed, they're poor, they're have a bone to pick with something. They're a quote unquote, religious extremist. He was a person that was fairly well off and no known mental health problems, and everyone around him is saying they're shocked, which is leading another set of people to kind of have this conversation about conspiracy theory. Like maybe he wasn't the one. Maybe this guy was set up, and who knows? I mean, clearly,
even if he was.
Or even if he wasn't.
If that is the case, there's still the one thing that was in the room that did this. No matter who did, it's the gun. So,
well, it was a bunch of guns. I think it was like 40 guns that were in that room.
I mean, he bought, I think, 30 guns in months' time. How is there not some? I mean, you can't buy you can't buy Sudafed, 10 packs of Sudafed at one time. You're able to go and buy 30 guns. I mean, and there's no record there's no computer system, no database that says, oh, this dude just bought 2 guns last week. Why isn't that? I mean, if I go to take my driver's license if I get pulled over in Virginia, they're able to look and see where I've been pulled over. My whole record will pop up. Exactly. Why is that not the case for somebody buying a gun? Why have we made it so easy? I mean, why do you feel like you're going to have something taken away? But sorry, I'm all over the place with this. Because be clear, the sale of bump stocks is off the chain right now because they haven't stopped it yet. It has to go through all of these chains of command before they're actually stopped. So right now people are getting their bump stocks because God forbid I won't be able to get my bump stock to make my machine weapon. This is how it happens. And after every mass shooting, this is how it happens. Gun sales go through the roof. Instead of putting a halt to gun sales for at least a week, a moratorium, we're going to stop this. No sale of guns for a week until after this shooting. We can figure out. No, people go through and they're through the roof. So this is where we are. This is how we're doing it. I mean, and I don't think anything's going to change.
Well, I think that, so this whole thing about the bump stock, which most people had no idea what a bump stock was.
Nope,
I'm not a gun person, so I don't even know very much of anything.
Possible, right?
But apparently, Republicans and or gun advocates were like, "Oh, what is a bump stock?" So a bump stock is an accessory that can be used to convert semi-automatic rifles to fire so rapidly as to simulate an automatic rifle. And so 12 of the rifles that Steve Paddock had were modified with a bump stock. So, and it basically replaces the standard stock, and you hold it against your shoulder. And I got to see kind of a video online of what it does, and it kind of just
Mass casualties is the goal.
right. The goal apparently, and that's the thing, so part of why the NRA is willing, because let's talk about the NRA, because you said why don't things happen. Well, I can give you 31 million reasons why.
Right. That were paid to
That
Donald
was how
Trump,
much
right?
the NRA paid to support Donald Trump's president candidacy. 31 million reasons why. That's why nothing happens, because the NRA, what the NRA tries to do during these times is keep a low profile. There is a woman, I can't think of her name right now, who also is co-sponsoring this bill on the bump stock. And she just talks about this whole succession of stuff. She talked about a shooting that happened under the Clinton administration. And really back then, I don't even remember off the top of my head what it was. And then you have, Sandy Hook. And then you have the Pulse nightclub. And then you had, Dylan Roof. And then you have the movie Aurora and the movie theater.
Yep.
And then you had when Gabby Gifford got shot in the head. And then you had when Steve Scalise got shot. And she said, look, after each and every one of these things, as America was horrified, I thought we were going to do something, but we didn't. She's like, so here we are again. Yeah. I think we should do something. Yeah. Are we going to do something? So when you it's ridiculous.
Well, there's a statistic that says we have had 521 mass shootings in 477 days in the United States. So, because there was a mass shooting on the day of, and that was CNN. I got that off CNN, and now I'm looking at it online. That is a true statistic. There was a mass shooting the same day as Stephen Paddock. 7 people were killed. Got no reporting because there was a bigger mass shooting. These are facts. This is where we are. Now, mass shootings meaning that maybe not everybody was killed, but there's somebody who is planning on killing a lot of people. Who you kill? I mean, it's forced. Are you right? You're reading that? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. Like, just so this is an editorial in the New York Times. Yeah. Came out October 2nd. Definitely take a look at it. It says 477 days, 521 mass shootings. Zero action from Congress.
Zero.
And then it shows you in an infographic, how many days starting at June. Well, actually, June, going over the 477 days. Yep. How many days there were mass shootings. It's quite repulsive, to be honest with you. When you look at it and then you think about the fact that, so because here's what we're doing here. I want to talk about this. Okay. So the NRA is trying to give cover to those individuals in Congress that they've paid for, bought and paid for.
Absolutely.
By agreeing to have a conversation about bump stock. And everyone from, folks are talking about in general, the NRA never says anything. So this is like monumental. But first of all, we've never had the deadliest mass shooting in American history.
Right.
Also, automatic weapons are already illegal. They're already illegal. So for an accessory that converts a legal weapon to an illegal weapon, in some ways, this is like a no-brainer. Right. It's not some big, tremendous aha moment here. This is like putting up something so that the people will feel better about the fact that they're not doing anything. Right. And so no one should be fooled or like, oh, the NRA is like getting it. No, this is like really smoke and mirrors, because all they're doing is saying you can't make a legal weapon an illegal weapon, which really the sale of these things should have been illegal in the first place, because making a legal weapon illegal is
Legal is
illegal.
illegal.
Right.
Right, it's
I mean,
illegal.
it's like not. So we have to be really clear that there's like no aha moment here with the NRA. Those individuals in Congress that are trying to act like they're really doing something by supporting this. I mean, it's great to support this, but this cannot be the end all be all by any means. Bump stocks are not our problem.
No.
And on the whole,
The guns are the
on the
problem.
street without regulation are the issues. I think that we really need, and we're going to
And
talk
mental
about,
health is our issue. I mean, we have so many. There are so many pieces to this puzzle.
Yeah,
I mean,
there are.
So yes, obviously, a semi-automatic weapon. I don't. I mean, I'm not understanding why automatic weapons. Yes, I know that they're illegal, but why are semi-automatic? Hunters need rifles, right? I'm just trying to understand. So I get if you want to hunt. I have no problems with if that's your choice. You want to hunt. If you are a hunter, but in that's fine. So, but why do you need then the hand? I mean, what do you, if you're going to the range and you're shooting, but these semi-automatic, this war weaponry, trying to wrap my head around why anybody would
it's
need.
not necessary. It's really
You can't
not,
even.
it's about the ego. It's
Yeah,
all about,
because
I mean,
you can't
they
hunt
said
with a
it's the
semi-automatic
feeling
weapon.
of a more powerful weapon. Listen, there is not going to be 500 deers running past you in
right,
succession
right.
that you need to wheel out 50 to 100 rounds. Like there's like one deer at a time. And let me tell you something. If you shot off all those shots, like you'd have a stampede pretty much because the deer clear out as soon as they hear any noise. So I mean, this is clearly
there's no, but
this
also
is
there's
not-
no example of having that many animal. I mean, we're not in the old days where buffalo are roaming. You're going into the woods. You may see one animal that you're going to shoot, but this is just for your sport. This is just to say you have a semi-automatic weapon. This is just for, I guess, folks like Stephen Paddock, until it's proven otherwise, can go up in the Mandalay Bay on the 32nd floor and shoot and kill as many people as he can. So we have 36 women and 22 men who are dead. Families are ruined, and 489 who are wounded. I mean, and so this is, and now you have the trend of, oh, this is how it was done, and so you have people who are, I don't know. I
want to also say this to Sabria, just on the whole NRA thing. The thing that is important to understand also here is that the NRA would prefer for this to be handled by ATF. Okay, so they would like to move this out of the hands of Congress.
Yes.
They would like the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Division of the
Right.
federal government to
be in charge.
to be in charge of this versus Congress, because the NRA has some stock in ATF. They are a part of the
Yes.
conversation. I don't recall exactly what their role is, but they're basically somewhat in bed with each other. So, unlike Congress, particularly those Congress people that are
Against.
for gun control, that are against gun violence, they are not bought and paid for by the NRA. So the other thing that the NRA wants to do is say, yes, 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 we support getting rid of bump stocks. Yes, 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 we need to deal with this. Send this to ATF, and ATF will handle this. So if you start to listen to some of the Republicans,
conversations.
they're going to say, yes, and we're going to send this to the ATF. But no, we want this to be handled in Congress. Because if it's handled in Congress, there could be some riders attached to it. There could be some other pieces so that this conversation doesn't get distilled down to bump stocks. We want to talk about background checks. We want to talk about,
Absolutely.
as Lamont was
No-fly
just
list,
pointing
no
out
gun.
to me, he was just pointing out to me like a nuance that I wouldn't even know. I was talking about automatic weapons are illegal, but fully automatic weapons are illegal. So even that nuance is really important. It means that there's some forms of automatic weapons that apparently aren't fully automatic. Right. So semi-automatic, of course, but there's these nuances, right? And so again, we want to be able to have a transparent process where we can have a real conversation about gun violence in this country, and we want some serious actions to happen. How many more children and people have to die? I want to just say this too, as we get ready to transition into our guest. I spent some time looking through the stories of the people that died. And so many of those people were in their early years, 20s and 30s. I mean, so many young mothers, so many young fathers. I mean, of course, there were people who were old as me in their 40s and 50s and 60s. But, just to see people's life just
Taken,
snatched
yeah.
from them,
Yeah.
in the prime of their life, we should be ashamed to live in a country that
Doesn't
says
want to
there's
do more.
nothing we can do
Yeah.
about that. I beg to differ. And I'm so happy and pleased that we have a guest here with us,
Thanks for
Moms
saying.
Demand Action. And we're going to talk with Lucy today, and we'll introduce her in a second. She's going to talk a little bit about why there is some things that we can do. And we don't have to accept no for an answer. And so let's go ahead and get Lucy on the show. We are joined today by Lucy McBath, who is a national spokesperson for Moms Demand Action. Welcome, Lucy.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to talk with you this evening.
Yeah, we're really, really happy to have you here. As almost everyone knows, there was this horrible, horrible tragedy in Las Vegas, Nevada, Sunday night. Over 59 people were killed, over 500 people were injured when a lone shooter with an automatic style weapon shot into a crowd of concert goers.
Yeah, I think there were 22,000 people who were at this whole. It was a weekend festival, so there were 22 or thousands of people.
And took snatched the lives out of so many people and traumatized thousands and thousands and thousands of others. And so this is just another example of devastating gun violence in our country. And so we're just so happy, Lucy, to have you here, and to talk with Moms Demand Action, because the work that you're doing is so important to keeping guns off our street and keeping our people safer. So I just want to say a little bit about Moms Demand Action. Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America was created to demand action from legislators, state and federal, companies, and educational institutions to establish common sense gun reform. So, Lucy, can you tell us a little bit about Moms Demand Action and its origin and what your role is with the organization?
Oh, sure. Moms Demand Action is actually an organization that began right after the Sandy Hook shooting in December 2012. Shannon Watts, who's the founder of our organization, she's a mother of 5. And she was living in Indiana at the time, and she was horrified by the with the shooting at Sandy Hook, all the children that were affected by that shooting. And she was just horrified and was looking for some means, some way to be active in, either showing her support or, looking for an organization that was working on gun violence prevention. And she couldn't find any. But what she basically did is she started a Facebook post, talking about the tragedy and how horrific it was and how she just felt so completely disgruntled with, our legislators and the country to allow this kind of shooting to happen, this massacre to happen. And she thought surely that our legislators would stand up and take action. But because no one did take action, she decided that she was going to, voice her views and opinions. She did on Facebook, and she had thousands upon thousands of people that were really engaged in the conversation that she started online. So basically, this online movement that she created became an, on the ground, boots on the ground, grassroots movement for gun violence prevention. And now Moms has over 60,000 volunteers. So mind you, this in December of 2012, and we've already grown so rapidly to over 60,000 volunteers. We've got 4 million supporters, and we've been able to help pass background checks on all gun sales in 7 states.
Wow.
We have laws in 24 states to prevent domestic abusers from getting guns. And, we currently have been really, really doing a lot of good work with, trying to dismantle, working in opposition to the NRA as they try to dismantle all of the permitting requirements. We've been able to get businesses such as Starbucks and Target and Facebook on board for public safety through gun violence prevention. So we have taken an online movement and made it, a grassroots movement for gun safety for our families and our children and our future generations.
That's great. That is, what I can't imagine where we would be if you guys had not started
Right.
this really important work. I mean, goodness, some of this stuff, background checks, like keeping guns out of the hands of
Domestic abusers.
Right.
That seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Absolutely. Keeping guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them, basically those that have been deemed, severely mentally ill,
Mm-hmm.
domestic abusers, and also people that have criminal backgrounds. So we've been able to do a lot of really, really good work around the country. Of course, the media may never tell you the successes that we have, but we've done a lot of really good work. We have a lot of survivors that work within our organization, such as myself. We're one of the only nonpartisan grassroots gun violence prevention organizations in the country. We are the largest, but we're one of the only ones that actually has a survivor network of survivors like myself that actually talk to our legislators, talk to our civic leaders. We actually testify around the country at our state legislatures. We do media appearances. We go to town halls. We write letters to our congressmen and women. We canvass our states. We are doing the on the ground, boots on the ground activism, and it's really truly making a difference.
And that's good to hear, because a lot of times we when these tragedies happen, we feel like there's nothing that's happening. I mean, what again, here we go. So the next question is, what do you think about the current administration's stance that it's too early to actually address the gun violence after Las Vegas? Their stance has been pretty much, we're not going to deal with, any politics. What would your organization say to that?
Well, I mean, most definitely, we're not happy about that at all. This should be a moment of reckoning for the United States. Of course, Las Vegas, as well as all the other mass shootings, should really be a moment of reckoning. And, for years, the NRA and their allies in Congress, they've pushed these extremist guns everywhere agenda. Mm-hmm. And, we routinely we see what we've gotten with that, a devastating pattern of countless Americans that are shot and killed every day. And most definitely, now is the time to talk about gun violence. I mean, if you don't talk about it now, when are we going to talk about it? How many people have to die in this country senselessly with the inability for our legislators to do something about it? It's time for our elected officials to really stop playing politics.
Right.
And start doing their jobs.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's really time to implement stronger gun laws, whether they personally agree with us or not. That's really not the issue. And we just have to be able to say enough is enough. Right. And this country belongs to all of us, and it's up to each of us to make sure that it's safe for all Americans. And it's on all of us to truly make this nation where we can all be safe, no matter who we are, what we believe, or where we are. So I beg to differ with, the Trump administration. Absolutely. When people are dying in the street, it is political. Absolutely. And they have to be accountable and responsible to what is happening in the country. And for the Trump administration to side with the NRA gun lobby, not so much even the lobby, but it's the leadership itself that pushes these extremist guns everywhere agenda. Shame on them for that. And as Congressman Lewis said, they have blood on their hands.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's people's first response when asked about gun safety laws or opportunities to increase gun safety, for people to say, stop politicizing this. That's the response of a lot of Republicans in Congress, or there's really nothing we could do. That to me is like the ultimate cop-out. How dare you say, oh, we just have to sit here and accept that there's absolutely nothing we can do to prevent 559 people from either losing their life or being wounded, seriously wounded. I mean, to me, that's unacceptable. There's absolutely always something we could do. And so I don't understand how folks think that that's an acceptable response, as if we are not the most creative, innovative nation,
No,
and
absolutely.
or people, or the human race is creative and innovative. Of course, there's something we can do. Do we want to do something, right?
Right.
I heard a
Right.
quote that it's harder to get, DL Hughley was saying it's harder to get 10 packs of Sudafed than it is to get a gun in some places. Like it's harder for you to go into a pharmacy and say, I'm going to buy 10 packs of just Sudafed because of the restrictions that they have on it than it is to go in some places and actually get a gun if you just pass this, pass. So it's
Absolutely. People are buying guns online with no
right.
background check. They're buying guns outside of gun shows with no background
Nothing.
check.
Yeah.
You've got licensed as well as unlicensed dealers that are
yeah.
buying online to people. They have no idea who they're even selling those guns to. I talk to people all the time. I had a young man who said to me, I just asked him, I said, if you were interested in buying a gun, would you know where to get one? He said, oh, sure, yeah. He says, I could buy one in 20 minutes.
Wow. So in lieu of that, like what types of gun safety laws do you believe would cut down on the violence?
Well, most definitely, I'm going to be a huge proponent of eradicating stand your ground because that's, the law by which Michael Gunn
We're
used
clapping.
Right, and George Zimmerman used against Trayvon. Stand your ground is a watering down of our common self-defense laws, which every state in the United States has, a very, portion of that law.
Right.
Basically, those laws say that, you have a right to defend your territory, you have a right to defend your home and family, but you do have a duty to retreat. In the event that someone poses a harm or risk to you, and then that harm or risk is abated and they leave or what have you, you do not have a right to shoot them in the back as they're turning away from you. You have to, at all costs, try to prevent from taking life. You must stand down. What Stand Your Ground does is it takes that duty to retreat out of your accountability to standing down. So, in some states, the laws are so loosely defined, even territories not defined. People are shooting people, that are out in the street and not even on their property, things of that nature. And they're shooting people based upon perceptions of fear or threat, and the threats are oftentimes not credible, such as it was not credible for George Zimmerman, such as it was not credible for Michael Dunn. So, most definitely stand your ground. I do believe in common self-defense laws, but stand your ground is definitely a watering down of making people accountable for how they're using their guns.
Right.
Background check legislation for all gun sales. I mean, we're not ever going to be able to take all the guns off of the street. We know that because of the black market selling of guns across state lines. However, we have to have some deterrence. And in the states that have actually enacted background check legislation, we've seen those so-called justifiable homicides drop by very, very large margins because we've been able to pinpoint those individuals that either are severely mentally ill or domestic abusers or have criminal backgrounds, preventing them from getting guns. Now, there are other ways that they get them, such as through straw purchases. They'll have people that do not have criminal backgrounds. They'll give them the money and have them go buy the guns for them. But we have to have some deterrence, and background check legislation is probably one of the easiest ways, if it were enacted all over the country, that we could prevent a lot, deter a lot of these senseless killings.
Right. So just making it more difficult, putting more layers on that onion so that it's harder for for people to get guns, because the harder it is, some people who are looking for them who shouldn't have it, I think would likely just not, even try.
Right. Exactly. You have to have, people say to me all the time, well, you're not going to get all the guns off the street. Well, no, you're right. We won't. But we have to have some deterrent. Do you advocate that we do nothing at all?
Right.
Such as what we see with the NRA gun lobby leadership. They advocate we do nothing because they don't want to be accountable or responsible. For them, it's putting profit over public safety. And, myself and many others like myself, that do this work in the trenches every single day, we refuse to accept this as the new near normal.
Right.
Absolutely. One of the things you hear a lot is, about the United States has the highest numbers of lives lost due to gun violence, and there are
It's like
a lot of
91 a day or something crazy like that.
right. And then there's this kind of contrast to other highly developed countries, be it Canada or other places who, have a much better handle on gun violence, right? And they have many, many, many more lives that are saved due to better regulation. So why do you believe that other countries have better gun safety laws than we do in the United States?
Well, one, because I think they have a better idea and in regard to the sanctity of human life, the preservation of human life. Australia banned guns because they had a massacre years ago, and so they decided that they were going to ban extremist gun use in their country. And you see what has happened with also with Britain and a lot of European countries. Some of them have some of the lowest percentages of gun deaths. I think Asia does too, simply because there is, a preservation of life is a way of life for them. There's a sanctity of life in those countries. Here in the United States, we're a very, very violent culture. And for people to say, well, yeah, this is a culture that this country was founded on, I beg to differ. That is the reason why we have the Constitution of the United States. That's the reason why we have a strong militia, so that we do not self-destruct. But I think that our culture has become so violent, it's become very acceptable to have lots of guns. It's acceptable not to use conflict resolution and to maim and to hurt people as a way to solve our conflicts. I think that we have gone astray in this country. I think from what God really intended this country to be. And I think that, it also has to be with moral decay. No accountability anymore. And people want to be able to do whatever they want to do, say whatever they want to say, and act in any ways in which they choose to act. I think it's also a lack of respect for authority, respect for human life. I think that, a lot of it is just the moral decay that our country is facing. And a lot of that is played out by implicit bias and racism, and it's played out through gun violence.
Yeah.
Well,
so what role do you believe the NRA plays in the lack of action by our government to have harsher gun laws? I guess besides the millions of dollars that they funnel in.
Right. They have paid millions of dollars to get a seat at the table in the White House. They most certainly have a
I think
seat.
it was $31 million that they donated to this administration, to his campaign. Yep.
Yeah. And they really, truly intend to carry out their extremist agenda of guns everywhere. And I will say this, though. It's not all of the NRA members that even understand what's happening. It's the leadership that has become so extremist. It's the leadership that's pushing, profit over public safety. It's the NRA leadership that has a stronghold on funding our legislators to push their extremist agenda of guns everywhere, no questions asked. The NRA remains, they remain one of the most powerful forces in politics today. They really, really are. And as I've said over and over again, and as we've said many, many times in my organization, most NRA members actually share our support for common sense measures.
Right.
They really do. If you sit down and you talk to them one-on-one, they're even grieved by the fact that the leadership of the organization is pushing these extremist measures. Most of them agree with us. Most of them say, yes, I am a law-abiding gun owner, and I want to continue to be a hunter and an enthusiast. But I don't think that, our organization should be pushing guns everywhere without any common sense measures put in place for us to protect ourselves. And so, I say to that is that, we have to continue to push back. We have to push back the NRA. We have to expose the leadership for what it truly is. We have to expose the leadership for what they are allowing to happen in the country. Most people in America don't even have any idea what gun laws are on the books in their states. When tragedies happen like this over and over again, everyone is just like, they're perplexed. How has this happened? Why has this happened? but because they don't truly understand what's happening right under their noses, that NRA leadership has been crafting this kind of legislation, this destructive legislation, permitless carry, concealed carry, reciprocity, stand your ground, the silencers bill, pushing all of these extremist measures, quietly crafting this legislation, passing it to these legislators and saying to them, we need you to pass this legislation, and we'll help you retain your seat if you do such. Right. If you do not, we'll make sure that you're not reelected. So there's a lot of intimidation towards our legislators that is, pushed on them to pass this kind of, dangerous legislation, and it's happening right before our very eyes. The NRA gun lobby of this generation and this culture is not the NRA gun lobby of the 25, 30 years ago. As I say, it's not your mom and pop's NRA.
No, I mean, right. And when you said the silencer bill, I mean, the fact that that's even I don't think we would have known. I don't think that would have come to light had Las Vegas not happened. But the fact that they're trying to pass that in Las Vegas is stunning. It's crazy. And I mean, what would even be the purpose of something like that? I mean, I asked that rhetorically, of course, but it's just.
Well, and I'll tell you the purpose. Since President Trump has been elected in office, gun sales have gone down. Of course, when President Obama was in office and the NRA leadership was espousing, they're coming to get our guns. You need to buy all the guns and ammunition because they're coming to take them away. They're trying to take away our Second Amendment rights. But now that Trump is in office, gun sales are down. Right. Because Trump is an advocate of no gun violence prevention whatsoever, nor his administration. So now gun sales are down. So what is the next best thing for gun manufacturers and gun sellers to do?
Right. The accessories.
Sell the accessories. Yeah. They got to continue to put profit over public safety. So that's what you see. The so-called Hearing Protection Act is not about hearing. It's not about protecting people's ears. It's about selling those accessories to continue to make profit. And the people that are dying in the streets, they're making profit off of the dead bodies all over this nation.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, when you say it like that, it's right. Just like, it's just, like how disgusting is that?
Yeah.
It's very disgusting.
So, consider in this political climate with everything that we've talked about, NRA giving $31 million to the current administration, people in leadership saying, we're politicizing this, there's nothing we can do, there's nothing that would stop this. What can a person like myself or Sabria or people we know, moms we know, do? Because we too are extremely concerned and we want to do something. We want to help say, no, this is not acceptable and we're not going to stand for it. So what can people do?
Well, most definitely we have to be a part of changing the culture. I mean, we have to be a part of, of just common citizens have to take a part in changing the culture. I always say you can't stand on the sidelines and complain about it if you're not willing to do something about it. Mm-hmm. So, of course, what most people do not do, because I do actually spend a lot of time, testifying around the country, talking to our legislators, talking to our civic leaders, talking to our national faith leaders. And what I will tell you is most often there are not a lot of people in the halls doing such. So doing things such as calling your legislators, telling them that you are very concerned about the bills that are being passed within your states, and that you want to hold them accountable to keeping their families, your families and your community safe. Social media is a big proponent now of movement building. You can tweet to your legislators, you can Facebook, post to your legislators, sending petitions, creating petitions, and actually hand-delivering those petitions to your legislators' offices is extremely important and relevant to do. Visit their regional offices, and not just one or two times. You need to keep going back again and again. Make it such that every month they know that you're coming. Every month, they know that you're phone banking them. Every month, they need to know that you're going to tie up their phone lines with distress calls about what they're allowing to happen in your communities. They need to know every month that you're coming again and again with a gaggle of people to talk about their irresponsibility with the gun laws. You need to make sure you're at all the town hall meetings and bringing up questions and holding them accountable and asking them, why are they not considering safety first in your communities? Join organizations such as Moms Demand Action. You can go online, momsdemandaction.org, everytown.org. We have online petitions and campaigns that will help you get engaged in whatever way you want to. If you just want to tweet, if you just want to send a letter, you can do that, or you can actually go with us to our major campaigns in Washington and around the country. You need to Google your state reps to find out their NRA rating. Each and every representative, every senator in this country gets a rating, and a report card rating from the NRA. And what you need to do is find out what the rating is. If they have an A rating, that's dangerous. That means that they do not care about public safety and that they are bedfellows with the NRA. And you need to be asking them why they have an A rating. Ask them why. And make sure that gun safety is an issue when you go to the polls. When you go to the polls, that's the most powerful thing that we can do, is show up at the polls and make sure that gun violence prevention is the issue that we're voting on. It has to be. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to change what's happening in this culture. Ask your legislators, where do they stand? Where do they stand on gun violence? And then whatever they tell you, you vote accordingly. You vote accordingly. And you tell them, if you are not concerned about the public welfare and safety of us, your constituents, we will remember in November.
Wow. Absolutely. Wow. This is, and
right now, even if you want to, you can actually take out your phones and you can text reject to 64433. And that connects you directly to your representatives in Congress to oppose, legislation such as concealed carry and the silencers bills that are running through Congress now. Or you can text ACT, A-C-T, to 64433. All these things you can do to show your concern right now.
I just did it. It sure does come up. NRA has Trump and millions of dollars. We have you. Call your rep now and reject NRA's radical call. I just did it. That's awesome.
And you can do that as many times as you like.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate all those different action steps that you gave people. It's heartening, because when you look at something like this and the leadership is saying there's nothing we can do, well,
or they're refusing to even address it. Really, it's not even. They're just not even addressing it at this point, and we feel like when they are going to address it, it's going to be some more of the same. I do feel inspired by your words and what you said. I feel like you've given some good marching orders for us to sort of make a dent in this mountain, to give us our first steps. Because we don't want to be here in another year or another 6 months. We want Las Vegas to be the last one. We thought that Pulse nightclub was the last. We thought Sandy Hook we couldn't believe Sandy Hook wasn't the last, where there wouldn't be measures put in place, real hard measures put in place, where our gun laws would be, questioned and countered. So I do appreciate you coming. We do appreciate you coming.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lucy, so much for sharing this time with us. Thank you so much, everyone at Moms Demand Action, for the work that you're doing every day to protect the people of this country and to create better accountability from our elected leaders. We really, really appreciate your work, Lucy, and thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Did you have any last words you wanted to share before we closed out?
I just want to say that, for those of us that are on the ground doing this work, we're considering ourselves a hope. dealers. You know, we want to be able to restore hope to our nation, to our families and our communities. And that's what Moms Demand Action does. And that's what Everytown does. And we're going to continue fighting on your behalf. But we need everyone to join in, and we really need your help. And, you know, at times we do lose some of our races, of course, but we're always losing forward. So in the end, we do win because it's the right thing to do.
Awesome. I love losing forward. That's a great way to think about it. So that means that you keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Lucy. Well, thank you again so much. And we are going to we are going to text 64433 reject and 64433 act. And we're going to do some of those things you said. We're going to get involved, and we're going to remember in November.
Right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So that was awesome. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of, I guess, next steps that we can do. And my act up is going to be to continue to text reject to 64433 or ACT 64433. Continue to do it all week long. I think that if we get the message out that that we need more gun regulations, even if you believe in your Second Amendment right, which I believe in as well. But if you are more on the side of you don't want anybody to touch, you have to have an opinion on this. So I would say text, reject, and then when it comes time for the conversation, let your representative know exactly what you want, because you have an opinion on this. Even if you are for guns, 100%, you do not agree with this. You do not agree with mass shootings. So they do not have to be one and the same. We are in the middle together. That I want you to be able to have your guns. I want you to be able to have them safely. And you want that as well. So that's where we need to come into the middle, I think. So I think I'm going to ask you to come on board with me, and I'll see your side and not come on board, but we can have some middle ground here.
My act up is going to be to go and figure out what these the NRA rating is for these variety of different states. So a couple of things here for me. One, I never knew people had NRA ratings. And we live in the District of Columbia, which of course we know we're taxed without representation. Right, we don't have a vote. But most people in D.C., or a lot of people anyway, are transplants from other states. And so I want to encourage all the people that are listening to us to go on the NRA's website. This is the part of the site where you can figure out, you can see a map of the United States where there are current elections will be highlighted a particular color, and you can click on the state and you can get a sense of who's running and what their rating is. I'll tell you, I just poked around here for a minute, and pretty much everyone that's a Republican has an A rating, and everyone who's a Democrat has an F rating, and I don't think that's coincidental.
No, obviously
So
not.
the website is nrapvf.org/grades. The other thing I want to say is, I think this is my second time ever on the NRA's website, but you will be able to see what a political machine the NRA is just from spending 5 minutes on the website. So if you were a person that was lukewarm before about what you're going to do, and you're repulsed by what happened in Las Vegas, then if you look at this website, and I'm telling you $31 million is what they're putting into making sure their people get elected so that guns are on the street the same way they are today, or even more plentiful, then you need to get involved as well as in bringing up the counter message. So yeah. I think just it's an education for all of us about why we continue to have this tremendous gun problem. And, thanks to Lucy and some of the tools she gave us today, some things that we can do to influence things in the direction that we think it should go. And that means protecting the lives of people and preventing deaths due to gun violence.
Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully next week's show will be lighter. Hopefully we'll have some good news, some great takeaways. That's also one of my hopes, and maybe my action item also will be to have a more positive story. I'll find one in the back pages of the news.
You will find one. That's the awesome thing about life, is that it does continue to give us heartwarming moments with the moments that are sad. It's the bittersweetness of it all. So, well, I think until the next time, this is it for us today.
Yeah, this is great.
Okay. All right. Well, this is Sheila Clark.
I'm Sabria Williams.
And thanks for joining us on Black Women Talk Politics. We will talk to you again next time. Have a good one.